Did your distributor, Indie Rights, give you the idea for a vampire movie, or is that something that you came up with and pitched it to them?
So obviously I met Michael and Linda through Frey, and Indie Rights was just phenomenal for that film. And as anybody that's ever gone through distribution knows, it's a nightmare process when you find a good distributor, cling to them. And they've become good friends. And we were at dinner one night, and I was talking with them, and I had recently come across a notepad that had this kind of some notes of this film. So I was telling them about it, just the initial ideas for it. And the next day, Michael texted me and basically said, "This should be your next film. This is something that could actually sell." And so I started thinking, I was like, well, Frey was great, and I mean, I'm fortunate it actually made its budget back and turned mildly profitable off of, fairly modest budget, but it's a film I never expected to make a dime off of. But if I want to actually have a career making films, I should probably do one that has the potential to make money, and so yeah, I've decided if I could find a way to make it work for me, that this would be the film to do. And that's when really reflecting on it and finding, and it was literally right around the time that, the story I said earlier about my grandfather passing happened, that I started thinking about it from that perspective. I'm like, okay, this could actually be really interesting. Just feeding into something that's like, drinks to numb the pain, is done with their life, but isn't, can't die. And then on the female side of it, it almost sounds terrible. I'm bringing up family as inspirations for my vampire movie. They're lovely people. But my mother had said to me years ago, when she was growing up, she was, in the 60s, being raised to be like, a good housewife. If she had aspirations, it was to be a teacher or a secretary. And then, late 60s, women's rights and really started to flourish. And she's like, when I went off to college, all of a sudden I'm being told I can be anything I want to be. And like, I'd never thought of that before. I don't even know who I want to be. And I could go on forever. She's an amazingly talented and smart woman who it took really until later on in life before she found the things she's really passionate about. And by that time, it was like, well, I can't really make this my career. I'm in my, late 50s or 60s. So, it was kind of the idea of like exploring that, a woman who's from that type of, whether culture or an era where they were really a commodity, that if they wanted to be something, it was to be a housewife and a kind of a servant class. How does someone like that navigate and find her own agency in this current climate where women are finally allowed to have a voice, finally allowed to make those decisions that can guide their life, and whether those decisions are right or wrong? I mean, the character in the script makes some dumb decisions, some decisions that she regrets, but she had the agency and the freedom to make those choices, and that's part of her coming of her own, into her own, and coming out of this this sort of place where she'd been under Ure or been a villager, and being able to kind of find that, navigate that, but then also learning from the examples around her. Her colleague and friend is another cocktail waitress who maybe isn't the best example of how to make the right decisions in your life, and so kind of explores that idea. And Gabriella, who plays Daria, was just such a perfect discovery for somebody to really encapsulate that persona authentically.
She was excellent. Is she Eastern European? Because she had a beautiful accent, but I looked at her bio, it didn't say.
Yeah, she's actually Hungarian. She grew up in Hungary, and she's been in the U.S. for a while now, but it was actually coincidentally, I didn't know this until after I'd cast her. I was telling her about some of the inspirations for when I was writing The Family. I based it loosely off the Elizabeth Bathory and her family. She's like infamous, often believed to have been a real vampire and found out that Gabriella actually grew up about approximately 10 miles from their castle. So
Oh, wow.
probably, you know, sure ancestors of hers had been, you know, sacrifices to the Bathories back in the day, so, or at least had known them. So it's, I think she brought a lot of that heritage, that really authentic heritage to the character. And also, you know, coming from a country that politically and socially is very different than ours. You know, something I always thought about with my grandmother, who was, she was also from Eastern Europe, and even, you know, all those years later, still like a very reserved woman, a very thoughtful, strong woman, but very reserved in her ways. Like almost, I mean, almost that old idea of knowing a woman's place. Like she was very much of that, and for someone coming from a different culture where that is still a thing, that a woman has a place, having that in this character, having that be something that she's actively trying to grow beyond, but still struggling with that. You know, I think Gabby's had this naturalness with that because she's coming from a place that kind of still has some of those old world social structures and philosophies.
Yeah, I thought she played the part extremely well, and you'd also see it in her eyes. She'd be processing something, but wouldn't necessarily say it. So you could tell, okay, she'll play the role, but she's got another trick up her sleeve, and
yeah,
I like that too. I thought that was really well done.
That was a huge challenge for her, and something I knew early on was going to be a difficult thing for anyone that played that role. Is throughout the entire film, there's only 2 scenes where you see her authentic self, or 3 scenes, I should say, where you see her authentic self. For most of the movie, her overt emotions are a cover for what the character is actually feeling. And so she really had to play that well. And a few of the people have seen the film more than once have said it's interesting to watch it that second time, where you can really see how she does, you know, ride that line of like acting the emotions that her character is supposed to be acting, but also showing what the character is really feeling. And like you said, so much of it is through just her incredibly subtle mannerisms, her eyes. She's a very gifted actress.
Absolutely, and I noticed she should have more credits. I hope she gets more work. I looked at her IMDb, and I really hope she gets more roles because she's extremely talented.
We were actually nervous about that with both her and Vanya for leads in a film. Nika, who was so helpful in the film as well as a supporting role. Yeah. She and I had some talks about that in terms of like, are we really entrusting in this film to some actors that don't have a lot of credits? I mean, Vanya had the theater background at least. But you'd watch the tapes and you're just like, I believe them so much. And, you know, really glad I took that, you know, had that faith in them and that they had the faith in me to, you know, go off to Vegas for a month and do this crazy shoot. But yeah, I got really fortunate with them. They're both just phenomenal talents, and I too really hope to see them in a lot more. I was joking, I hope by the time we do the sequel to this, I can't afford them.
We have a quote here from your executive producer and distributor, Michael Madison. Okay. And he's of Indie Rights, and he put, Geoff Ryan proved that he could deliver the highest quality production value and dramatic flair on a budget that makes profitability much more attainable than more directors can deliver. So your first feature, Frey, reached what, the top 15 in Amazon war films?
Yeah.
War and military? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Frey reached the top 15 war and military films in Amazon in the US, and it got to number 2 under art house independent films in the UK. They apparently don't have a war and military section, so they put it under indie art house. But it was wild. I mean, I just never expected that. I mean, we were literally right below, I have a screenshot of it, we were right below Apocalypse Now. I'm like, if I go above Apocalypse Now on Amazon, I'm just going to retire. I'm never going to top that. Just go out while you're ahead. But it was wild. I mean, to see our little film performing better than, you know, on Amazon, performing better than Hurt Locker, performing better than, you know, Platoon, these films that were just, to me, iconic and great films in their own right. And I mean, the UK one I also have screen grabbed because it was just surreal to see. It was literally the only film above it was Reservoir Dogs,
Oh, wow.
which is just wild to see. So yeah, and again, I mean, we did that film for so little. There's a lot of expenses to the film that add up. I mean, the festival circuit, marketing, promotion, sound mastering. I spent a fortune on Frey. I was a director sound man, and I'm not a great sound man, so a lot of post budget on refining the sound quality and stuff like that. But yeah, it was great to see that happen. And so, you know, Linda and Michael, not only because of that, but they've seen what I've done with the commercial world. They've seen, you know, just the diversity of projects I can do that have been successful for clients. So they know that even though Frey was my only feature at the time, that I at least had the consistency of being able to deliver at a high production value for modest budgets. And so, and again, I'm fortunate. The fact that I fell into the world of doing, like, you know, fashion web commercials and stuff where, you know, I wouldn't have the greatest budget for my end of it, but would make it work. And just got to constantly be shooting. I mean, they have a new season every 3 months, so there'd be a new ad every 3 months. And I was really fortunate, just constantly refining that skill set, and then not having budgets, always having to get my own costumes, do my own set design, but learning from these commercial shoots where I'm working with these, you know, professional production designers, professional costume designers, and all that sort of stuff. And so I developed taste level for what you can accomplish with a budget, but then also try to apply that to my own productions where, you know, and I enjoy that stuff. I think that's part of having that fine arts background helps, where it's not about the medium, it's about the overall message.